What a headshot! What a head!
How's it, guys? This is Dayvy, FPL, and welcome back to the Fantasy Premier League video here on my channel. Now in this video, I'm going to be bringing you guys my Game Week 8 team selection. So if you guys don't know, I actually have activated the wildcard chip. So in this video, I'll be bringing you my latest and greatest wildcard draft that I've managed to come up with up until this point. We're also going to be taking a look at a quick review of Game Week 7, and I do think Game Week 8 is one of the more important weeks that we have to look at the preceding game week just to find out which players are going to remain in our wildcard team and which players are going to fall out. If you guys are also on the wildcard ship, make sure to drop your latest drafts down in the comments below. Always like to look at your guys' team, see what you guys have come up with. But besides that, sit back, relax, and let's get straight into this video. So Game Week 7 didn't go as to plan as we probably were expecting. I did think Game Week 7 was going to be a throwaway week just because it was 1 week before the wildcard. We were kind of deliberating between wildcarding Game Week 7, Game Week 8. So the team didn't look that strong. There were just a couple of options, mainly the Wolves assets that I kind of had hope for that would return in Game Week 7. As you guys can see on the screen, unfortunately those players didn't end up returning. We still did manage to get above the average. We got 42 points above the average of 38, but that unfortunately wasn't enough to get a green arrow, and it was a little bit of a red arrow to about that 260k mark. So we actually have had a couple of red arrows on the trot here, so hopefully the wildcard in Game Week 8 can boost us back onto that green arrow side of things, and the rank could look a little bit better come Game Week 10. So on the bench, the only player that actually featured was going to be Ben Foster. Now I don't actually know if Bachmann was back from his injury. You guys can probably comment that down below, but if Bachmann was back from his injury and Ben Foster still remained between the sticks, that leads me to believe that he might actually be featuring for the short-term to medium-term future. This will be really nice as he is quite cheap, 4.0 million. Might actually have a price rise relatively soon to 4.1, but I'm pretty sure most of us do have him as the second goalkeeper anyways. None of the other players featured on the bench, so that's something that we're going to have to correct on the wildcard. Probably get a better playing bench, just so if we need to call on them, they can also feature. Going on to the starting 11, and our first player did end up getting a return, and that's going to be Sanchez from Brighton with a clean sheet. So Brighton keeping the clean sheet on the weekend in Game Week 7. So really happy that he managed to get those clean sheet points. But the thing I'm kind of noticing with Sanchez is that he does get some clean sheets, but the save points are not there. So this might be one of those situations where we do actually look at another goalkeeper, just because from a save point of view, they provide more points or higher ceiling, and therefore might get some bonus points in the upcoming game weeks as well. But nothing to kind of complain about in Game Week 7. I was really happy with the clean sheet, especially because we did start Sanchez, even though he did have that Arsenal fixture, where some other managers might have started Foster because he had the easier fixture. The rest of the defense, we've got two disappointments. We've got Luke Shaw and Semedo. So Semedo was probably the disappointment with the Adama Traore of the game week, because with that fixture that Wolves did have, I was expecting some mini hauls from both of these two options, but unfortunately that wasn't the case, and Semedo only ended up getting 2 points. And then Luke Shaw with the fixture against Everton only returning 2 points as well, as United actually ended up making that game quite tough. So we'll be really happy to get these two players out of my squad, especially the Wolves assets, as we look onto greener pastures and not have to kind of worry about our Wolves assets anymore. The final defender that we did bring in actually for Trent Alexander-Arnold, who did drop in price, so we'll be rebuying him for the same price we sold him at, was going to be Azpilicueta from Chelsea. So between the Chelsea defenders, there was some up in the air debate. We were looking at Alonso, Chilwell, we also were looking at Rudiger, but I decided to go for Azpi as I just wanted a little bit of security with at least some attacking threat, and that's exactly what Azpilicueta provided us. 2 assists in that game. Unfortunately, Chelsea did concede to Southampton, but if Chelsea did keep a clean sheet, that would have been a massive haul for Azpilicueta. As you can see, 10 points already, bonus points, 2 assists to boot. Great kind of score from him, and I was really happy that I did go for Azpi over someone like a Rudiger, as he ended up scoring a lot more points. So to be honest, the free transfer probably ended up saving this game week, because if we didn't have Azpilicueta and we had someone else, I don't think the score would have looked too great, and the red arrow would have been even stronger. The midfield department, although I always call this kind of the fabulous 5 or the frantic 5 or whatever you want to say, this week it was actually probably the failure 5. The only player that ended up returning was going to be Mo Salah, but we'll talk about him a little bit later on. Going on to the left hand side of things, we've got Ismaila Sarr and Adama Traore. So Traore didn't start yet again. I kind of had a little bit of hope. I thought that after the performance of the Wolves attack last week, there might be a slim chance that Adama Traore actually does feature along with Raul Jimenez and Hwang, but that wasn't the case. Came off the bench, I think, in the last minute, so he didn't get any returns at all. Same with Ismaila Sarr. Was a little bit disappointed with him because I did think Watford, I would be able to hold on to Ismaila Sarr for one more game week, but I think they did actually play against Leeds, and that fixture ended up not being as good for the Watford side of things. So these two were a little bit disappointing because I did think the fixtures that both these two teams had potential for returns, but only the 1 points from both of these. Going on to the right-hand side of things, we have the red side, Greenwood and Jota. So Greenwood actually ended up only returning 1 point, and then Jota returning 2 points, was subbed with the clean sheet point, but unfortunately did pick up a yellow card against Man City for a little bit of a silly foul, so I thought he could have avoided that, and he actually did pick up the yellow just before he got subbed off. So kind of rubbing salt into the wounds there as a Jota owner. I was hoping that Jota could get some returns against Man City to repay my patience, but unfortunately wasn't the case, and I'll have to just keep 2 points as he sees his way out of my team. But we'll end off the midfield with some happier thoughts. It's going to be Mo Salah, who picked up an assist, a goal, and I think maximum bonus points against Man City in that 2-2 draw that I must say was a very good game. And I mean, this kind of just shows Mo Salah is one of those fixture-proof players, and even against Man City, arguably the toughest fixture in the Prem at the moment, the Liverpool attack still looked quite strong, and Mo Salah ended up getting double-digit returns. So well done to those of you guys who did end up captaining him. A couple of messages came through on my Twitter DMs of the people celebrating the Mo Salah captain, so well done to you guys. That was definitely a maverick captain to go for, and unfortunately my captain didn't end up returning. That's going to be Cristiano Ronaldo, ended up being on the bench for that Everton fixture. Now I do understand that Ronaldo might have been a little bit tired after playing quite a few minutes, but I just thought there was a potential for CR7 to start that game, considering in this international break that we're currently in, I wasn't really expecting him to get too many minutes. But no, Oli did end up benching him, United not winning that game. So was it the right decision to bench Ronaldo? Maybe, maybe not. I thought when he did come on though, wasn't looking the sharpest, and I think I'm going to have to take that 1 point double to 2 at the end of the day. The final four to talk about, Antonio also with only 2 points. West Ham have been a little bit disappointing in these past couple game weeks, but with Antonio, he does have the potential to score against any team, and that's why he might be worth holding on to on that wild card. But overall, not the best game week in the world. A little bit of a grey arrow, small red arrow. I'll take it considering that I did expect this week to be a little bit of a write-off before we hit the wild card in game week 8. Now, should I have wild carded in game week 7? Probably. If I did wild card, I think I would have been about 20 points better. So I think at the end of the day, game week 7 and game week 8 wild cards will relatively look the same. So I think I should have wild carded in game week 7. And I think when I look back on this, this might be one of those mistakes of the season. But now going on to the next talking point, we're going to be focusing on Game Week 8 and everything Wildcard Week related. This update will be just a kind of reminder that I have activated the chip if you guys haven't. If you want to follow along with the team, if you want to get the excitement of Wildcard Week going, activate the chip right now so that you can catch those last price rises and avoid those last price drops. But in this talking point, I also wanted to give you guys an update on some players, some injuries and that sort of thing. I'm going to start off with Lukaku from Chelsea. So right now, all we know with Lukaku is that he did miss Belgium's game in the Nations League, the 3rd and 4th playoff, which I don't think is the most important game in the world. And I think the reason that Martinez gave was muscle fatigue. So basically what that's saying is that Lukaku is a little bit tired, and you guys don't have to worry about anything about him not starting against Brentford on the weekend. I think it'll be perfectly fine, perfectly well rested going into that Chelsea fixture, that Game Week 8 fixture. And you guys just have to wait till what Tuchel says in the press conference on Thursday or Friday. I think he'll be fine though. That's my expectation. So don't really worry about that. Sometimes we do overreact to these international break injuries, so I'm just telling you guys that don't worry about Lukaku. I'm pretty sure he'll be fine. We then also have news today about Trent Alexander-Arnold, who has been confirmed to be fit or have recovered from this injury that he's had over the past couple weeks. So Trent will be fine for Watford away at the first game of Game Week 8. So if you guys do want Trent, get him back into those squads, and if you do manage to keep hold of him, that's just a little bit of a reward for your patience. And the final update I'm going to be giving you guys is going to be revolving around this international break, especially with these Brazilian options. So the player this probably relates to the most is going to be Rafinha from Leeds. So if you guys didn't watch the last week videos, which I would recommend you guys go check out, the thinking behind Rafinha not playing Game Week 8 was the fact that Brazil play early hours of Friday morning, and obviously Leeds play on Saturday afternoon. So will these Brazilian options be fine for Saturday? We don't really know. But right now we do know with the Liverpool assets, Alisson, Fabinho, those sort of players, they have been confirmed to miss Watford. Obviously Liverpool do play the first game, so there is about 2 to 3 hours between Liverpool and Leeds kickoff, and you guys can kind of decide if that's going to actually make a difference between Alisson not playing, Fabinho not playing, but Rafinha playing. I personally don't think that Rafinha will feature. I just have some hope that he might play against Southampton, but right now I think we have to assume that he won't, and then maybe in the press conference that Bielsa delivers, he might give us a more concrete update. Other than that, I'll give you guys my normal, just wait for the press conferences. There's been a lot of news, a lot of injuries that have happened over the past game weeks. So I'm going to be all ears and eyes focused on these press conferences coming up on Thursday and Friday. But now going on to our Game Week 8 wildcard draft, or at least my latest wildcard draft, and as you guys can see, it's a little bit of a maverick draft. I've still kept the 5 at the back. If you guys haven't watched the draft that I did a couple of days ago, I believe it was Saturday afternoon, you guys can go check that out, but I have varied that draft to this video to just keep things fresh and deliver my updates and my talking points that I have thought about over these past couple of days. The first talking point that I want to be going over is going to be the exception of a Man City midfielder in that department, and the reason why I've not gone for a Man City midfielder is I've just done some thinking. I've looked at a Grealish, a Mahrez, a Foden, and also a Ferran Torres, and I've just come to the conclusion that these options are too much of a rotation risk. And yes, while they might be worth it at the end of the day if they do start and score, I just think that might be a little bit too risky for me, and I've decided to go for some more assured options. I have, however, kept this back 5, and the reason I've gone for this back 5 is I've just thought to myself, these players are more nailed than we actually are thinking. A Chelsea option, a Man City option from a defensive point of view, I think are essential with these lovely fixtures coming up, and I really do trust these defenses, and also these players do offer some attacking threat as well. So I just think value per million on the defense is going to be more worth it over these next couple games. And if you guys do look at the midfield and the forward departments, I don't think there's too many options at the same price point that can outperform these defenders. But going with the back 5 obviously does have its rotation risk. These players, although I do think they're quite nailed, might still get rotated. There is an injury update that we are expecting on Rudiger, as he did pull out of the German squad with a back injury. So keep your guys' eyes on that Chelsea press conference to get updates on Rudiger as well as Lukaku. But going with the back 5, as I mentioned, has its rotation risk, so that's why I have gone for quite a strong playing bench. Just so if these options are benched, I'm going to kind of hope that they don't come on, and then I might get one of these bench options that still have some nice fixtures coming up. So starting off with the bench, we've got Ben Foster, nothing much to talk about there. 4.0 million, might actually feature for Watford, even though Bachmann is back from this injury. So I mean, that's kind of no questions asked. I love having a cheap option from a defensive point of view or goalkeeper point of view on my bench, and 4.0 million perfectly fits that criteria. Now the next 3 options are all from the midfielder department. You guys can see that the starting 11 is a little bit of a strange one, a 5-2-3. So I haven't really used this formation much in the Premier League, or at least in fantasy. So this might be actually the first time that I am going for this formation. But the 3 bench options are going to be in Bumo from Brentford, it's going to be Townsend from Everton, and then finally Douglas Luiz from Aston Villa. So at 4.5, now 4.6 million, Douglas Luiz is my personal favorite kind of cheap optional budget enabler in the midfield department. Has seemed to have nailed down a spot in that Aston Villa starting 11, and his stats actually look quite strong as well. Now I do understand there's a player called Norman, I think I'm pronouncing that right, apologies if I'm not, from Norwich that actually has some relatively good stats, but I just think Douglas Luiz tempts me slightly more than the Norwich midfielder, and that's why I've gone for him. Now Mbumo and Townsend, as I mentioned, with this kind of big at the back or back 5 formation, you guys have to worry about some rotation sometimes, and that's why I've gone for 2 5.5 options in Mbumo and then also Townsend to come off the bench if needed, and they can still get some returns. Now, if you guys have looked at the bench, you'll notice that it's quite a strong bench actually, and that's my only concern with kind of this draft is that am I going to have a kind of benching headache over these next couple of game weeks? But I guess that might be a good headache to have, as it means your starting 11 has great fixtures. So comment down below if you guys think I'll be having a couple of benching headaches. I'm expecting to, but as I said, might be a good thing, might be a bad thing. We're just going to have to kind of see how these upcoming game weeks play out. In terms of Mbumo versus Tony, I do prefer the midfielder just because he is playing as an out of position midfielder at that forward department, and I just think at 5.5 provides better value for money over his counterpart. Townsend's also a nice little option from that Everton lineup. Now I do think Townsend has to start even if DCL and Richarlison come back from their injuries, as I just think that Everton have been playing quite well recently. I don't think that Rafa Benitez is going to shake things up too much. Now you guys can go for a Damari Gray, a Doucouré if you guys want to. I just think Townsend might offer slight more value for money as he is a little bit cheaper than someone like a Doucouré. But now going on to the starting 11, which I'm sure you guys are all excited about. Might be kind of roasting me in the comments down below. I know this is kind of an out there draft, a more of a differential draft, but I am actually quite happy with it. Starting off in goal, I still have gone for Sanchez, and the reason behind this, as I've communicated over the past couple weeks, is I don't really like to make too many goalkeeper transfers. And at 4.5, there's a couple of goalkeepers that might replace Sanchez, but I just think for the long term, I would prefer the Brighton defense over someone like a Ramsdale or the Arsenal defense. So that's why, although the Sanchez fixtures aren't that great, Man City Liverpool in game week 9 and 10, I just think I'm kind of looking long term here. I only want to use my second wildcard quite late into the season, so that's why Sanchez will be here for the long term, and that's why I have gone for the Brighton goalkeeper. Now going on to the back line, I've gone for 2 Chelsea defenders, 2 Man City defenders, and 1 Liverpool. So let's start off with Trent Alexander-Arnold because he has been announced fit for Watford, and that's why he has found himself into my lineup. Just because I think if Trent's fit, he scores FPL points, and I'm just hoping that Liverpool defense can be a little bit more secure as they've been a little bit shaky over these past couple games. Now the Liverpool fixtures aren't amazing. They have kind of a good one, a bad one, and the bad ones are a little bit tough because they are away fixtures, and that's the only thing I do worry about Trent. I think if you're going to go for no Trent in your wildcard draft, perfectly understandable as the fixtures don't look that great, and the Liverpool defense has been slightly leaky. But I've opted for him as I just think I always like to own him as he's a great option from FPL's point of view. My other defenders though are going to be more on the blue side of things. The 2 Chelsea defenders I've opted for are going to be Rudiger and Azpilicueta. Now as I mentioned, Rudiger is currently yellow or orange flagged. Can't really remember what it was, but he has pulled out of the German squad because of a back injury. So just keep your guys' eyes on that. If he's confirmed out, we might actually switch this around. We might go for a Tierney, might actually go for a 4 at the back, maybe upgrade one of the midfielders. But right now I'm expecting him to recover, and that's why he is still in my lineup. Now with the Chelsea options, although they don't offer that much attacking threat, I do think they're more nailed than maybe a Chilwell, an Alonso, or Reece James. Reece James has been training today, so if you guys do want to take a little more of a punt, I would recommend that. But I think Azpi, Rudiger, nothing wrong with these 2 options. You're going to be relying on clean sheets anyway, and with these lovely Chelsea fixtures coming up, I think there might be a couple of them. We're then going to go on to Diaz and Cancelo. Now these 2 options do offer a lot of attacking threat, especially Cancelo, but Diaz off those set pieces is also quite dangerous with his head. Now Cancelo and Diaz have both been quite nailed options in that Man City lineup. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they have started every single Premier League game this season, so that's why I'm quite secure with them, even though they are quite expensive. Now the next 3 Man City fixtures look quite strong, but after that they become a little bit hit or miss, but I just think that Man City defense is so solid that even in the tougher games they can still keep a clean sheet. As I mentioned, the back 5, I'm going for it because I just think the fixtures look great. The value per million looks quite strong, and at the end of the day, there's so many midfielders or forwards at this price point that I actually wanted. Go on to the midfield department, and it's quite a depleted department. We've got Mo Salah and Rafinha here. Obviously with Rafinha, if he's going to be out of this fixture, I'll just simply sub on Townsend or maybe play an Mbumo. Probably not though, because he does face Chelsea and I have 2 Chelsea defenders. So I might be hoping that maybe Townsend gets some returns. But I am kind of setting up my starting 11 if everyone was going to feature, as this is my strongest playing side. So Salah, Rafinha, the reason why these 2 players are in my midfield is that I think these are the more essential midfielders to kind of own. They're my favorite midfielders to own over the upcoming game weeks, and as I mentioned, would have liked to have a Heung-min Son, but he's just too expensive, and the City assets, I'm just worried about too much rotation. Mo Salah is a no-brainer in my opinion, the most essential player in FPL to own at the current moment, and I would recommend that you guys do bring him in and probably captain him for game week 8. Rafinha on the other hand, although he might not be the best FPL option, I think that Leeds attack, I want some coverage of them, and with Bamford out injured, Rafinha is the best option to go for. It's also been really nice to see that Rafinha has been playing well with the Brazilian national side, and I think it's only going to boost his confidence up, and hopefully that equals more FPL returns. Now going on to the front line, we have some differentials here. First off with Raul Jimenez, don't really consider him to be that much of a differential, but I do think with these Wolves fixtures coming up, just hoping that he can kind of rebound. I do really love watching Raul Jimenez. I really enjoy that he's come back from this injury, firing away, recently got on a little bit of form, so I'm hoping that continues over these next couple games. And Wolves attacking stats have also looked relatively good, and that's why I've opted for Raul Jimenez over maybe a Huang, although he is more expensive, he's more nailed, and he is on penalties. Lukaku, another no-brainer on a wildcard, as long as he's not injured. If he is actually going to be missing game week 8, I might keep Ronaldo and then swap Lukaku and come game week 9. I just think that this Brentford fixture might be quite tough from an attacking point of view, but I do think I have faith in Lukaku over these next couple games to return quite strongly. And I think in terms of my captaincy, it's going to be between Mo Salah, Lukaku most game weeks. This week it will be on Mo Salah. Sorry for not kind of including that on this image. I simply just forgot. But I think Watford, although it's the first game of the game week, we might be a little bit superstitious about that. But I think that Mo Salah will definitely get a return against Watford. Completing our attacking department is going to be my punt of my wildcard, and it's going to be Adam Armstrong from Southampton. So at 6.0 million, quite a nice price tag for him, a little bit under the radar at the moment, I think, considering how nice those Southampton fixtures do look. But I just think over these next couple games, can see Southampton scoring at least a few, and that's why I'm kind of banking on Adam Armstrong to do quite well. We have had an injury to Che Adams though, which I think is going to negatively affect that Southampton attack, but I was hoping that Adam Armstrong can maybe get on some form, even though Che Adams isn't partnering him. Now, as I did say, this is a punt, so this is one of those players that there's not too much risk if they don't end up returning, but I'm just hoping that he'll be on the receiving end of at least a couple of goals over these next few. So overall, the team I know does look quite weird with a 5 at the back, but I've kind of grown to this formation over the past couple of days, and I do think from a value per million point of view, this back 5 can return massive points. Let me know in the comments down below. As I said, you guys are probably roasting me in the comments down below, but I do think this draft has the potential. And on a wild card, you might want to take a few punts, be a little more differential than going super template. But this is basically wrap up the video, guys. Hopefully you did enjoy it. Please don't forget to like it if you did and subscribe if you have not subscribed yet. What I did want to say, I probably will put this in the comments down below, is I want you guys to post what you want me to create in my next video. Do you guys want another top 1000 team selection, or would you rather have the best predicted wildcard draft over these next couple games? Obviously, what I'll do with that is I'll go over to Fantasy Football Fix and I'll create a wildcard draft that's predicted to score the most points. Or what I can also do is just create a draft for this upcoming Game Week 8 and I'll look at Game Week 8 on its own. But I'm signing off. It's been Dayvy FPL, and I'm out. Cheers. Bye.